Little horse shy.
Alright, we're streaming.
Okay.
It's 6:30.
All right, let's call the meeting to order. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the Union City Community Schools Board meeting. Our meeting agenda is available for you to follow. The expectation for our board meeting is to follow this agenda closely. We operate under the Open Meetings Act and utilize Robert's Rules of Order to govern our discussion and decision-making process. There is an opportunity for public comment during our set agenda. We welcome the public to express their opinions during this time of our agenda. If there are any questions about the agenda or the board meeting process, please seek out one of the board members for clarification. Do we have any addition or deletion of items to the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as provided.
So moved.
Support. Discussion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Motion carries. We'll move on to correspondence. Do we have any correspondence today?
None that I'm aware of.
Thank you. Next is the public comment statement. This is the section of the meeting in which the public may make comments or share their opinions about items on the agenda. We ask you to limit your comments to no longer than 5 minutes per person to allow others the opportunity to speak. This is an opportunity for the board to listen to your concerns. It is not board practice to act on the concerns voiced during this meeting to allow for the board to do further research. Do we have any comments this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on to the audit presentation. Sarah, you are up.
That was really fast.
We are not messing around.
So I know you had the audited financial statements, but Kelly just added the memo that Nancy from the audit company, sent that has notes of stuff that she wanted you guys to look over, or, kind of pointing out the important features. Okay, so I'm not gonna go through all the bullet points because I don't think it's necessary necessarily. The first part of the audited statements, though, it has what's called the MD&A, and that kind of gives you an overview of the year in comparison to like last year. Sorry, I'm just trying to get to that there. So that's the first section. That kind of just, like I said, explains like last year's a little bit compared to this year's, pulls out some stuff, reasons why there might be an increase in revenue or why we might have more expenses. The part that you guys are going to care about the most is on page 27. So I'll just have you guys look at that page. And that shows the first budget that was submitted, which would have been in June of 23, and then the final budget, which was the one that was in June 24, and then the actual is the last one. Most of the differences in the numbers are smaller pieces of things, not big things. There was the middle school HVAC project. The beginning of the year, I wasn't putting it in there because we were paying for it. And we didn't have the revenue yet because I have to ask for the revenue once the project's done. So I made an error and I didn't ever put it back into the budget. So at the bottom under capital outlay, it shows it was off by $537,000. That's what that's for. But that also shows up in federal sources revenue, how there's $764,000 that was difference. That's also that piece. So it didn't make it go up or down because it's an in and out from it, if that makes sense to you. other thing I wanted to point out about that is I had itemized one of our revenue pieces under, according to this, it was under the inter-district and other, whereas they put it under federal resources. So that's why it's showing $142,000 difference. It's still the same amount of revenue, they just placed it in a different spot than I did. And we talked about that last year. There was a few things for expenses that they put in a different item spot than I did. So that kind of sometimes will show it a little bit different. But the good news is, instead of ending in a deficit, we ended the year with $63,637 over. So we didn't lose money this year, so that's definitely a good thing. One thing I also want to mention, and I think I talked about this before when we were approving the budget for this year, is our food service. Our food service balance is $13,000. That's what we're starting at. And I've had conversations with Deb. We just met last week to go over where we are now. And then we're going to meet again next week before Thanksgiving to kind of see where we are for the October numbers, to make sure that we're staying in line and we're not overspending. And so far, everything's looking pretty balanced. August is off always just because we're only in school for a few amount of days, so it doesn't quite offset. But then as it goes throughout the year, then it kind of evens its way out. So our goal is to meet every couple months, and if we have to, every month, so we can make changes as we go along if needed for the program. The state has changed how much money we get because there's the Michigan School Meals Fund that they started last year. They changed how much the rate is this year too. So it's confusing because it's not something I can just calculate, which is very frustrating. So it's kind of like see as you go thing to see where we are. But I'm hopeful that that will give us a little bit more incentive, and we've also had more kids that are eating, so that of course helps too. So I will also let you know, because of the mistake I made in not including it was the ESSER 3 middle school funds, that was a finding, which I've already responded to them, and they have that in there, and it's something they have to report. And it was frustrating because after I sent them the numbers, I instantly saw that, but I already sent it, so I couldn't go back and change it. So I was happy at least I found it at that point and could point it out right away. So they were like, oh, well, okay, we still have to put it on there, but I'm glad that you noticed. So I will do my best to make sure that doesn't happen, but our ESSER 3 money is gone, so I mean, it's bad because we don't have it, but good because that's one less piece for me to worry about. And then they did a single audit that they have to do on federal programs. They looked at our ESSER funds and then also the food service program, and they didn't find any compliance issues. So I do have specific stuff. If you want me to go through more, I can, but it's a lot of material for you to review, and a lot of it I think isn't necessarily interesting or something you should be concerned about.
I'm waiting for the move.
Go ahead.
Two questions. One, you mentioned that they put things in different categories. Is that because of a standard, or just because of an opinion that they did that?
I honestly don't know, because I follow what I think is the standard of where stuff goes. So I'm not sure if just in their software program, if it automatically puts it somewhere else than me. I'm not sure.
So they didn't consider that a big deal or a finding. It was more
no.
of just disagreement on how to put it in there.
Yeah.
But they still made you do what they wanted. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to avoid the headache in the future, but it sounds like it's
Yeah, and
difference
I
of
don't
opinion.
know. I don't know how to change that piece
Okay.
necessarily, because one of the, if I remember correctly, I think pupil services was one of them that they put different in instructional staff, and you can see, one's over, one's under. So really, they're pretty accurate. Just
But there's no real risk to us in terms of improper reporting in the future because
No.
we didn't do it the way it was.
no. But if you, like I did, I didn't have the revenue in there or the expenditure, so it was just too much of a high. They have a certain percentage, and if you're over that, then they have to report it. I don't know what the percentage is, but
Now you're talking about that 500,000.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, my other question was that one. So it was missed on both top and the bottom.
Exactly. Because I just wasn't putting it in, and my plan was, oh, I'm going to put it in for the final budget. And I did not.
That's all I got.
Really?
Excellent job. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions? I did want to point out that they say that they appreciate the management team's cooperation in making the audit procedure go smoothly. And this year was a little bit different because we were originally scheduled to do it earlier, and I had kind of a little health scare that pushed it back. But they were phenomenal in getting everything that they needed and very helpful in that whole process. So that was very comforting for me to know that they're an easy company to work with and, understanding. So
One more question. You've only ever worked with these guys, right? You didn't work with the other guy that was here before, or did you? I can't remember.
Dan,
Yeah.
I did for
Okay.
2 years.
Okay. I
He
didn't know if we.
was much more in depth, and it was like 5 very long days.
Dan was more in depth.
He was like, yes.
Just
I
a
can tell you, like it was like too
Like,
much, really.
I don't have
mean,
anything to do with these audits.
I think Dan just like being
But-
here or something.
And I was an auditor
It's very
before, and I
in-depth.
was like, why are we looking at this much? Like, you're supposed to take a percentage of something. You shouldn't have to look at everything, because that's just too much.
Just wondered if, I'm not implying we should, just curious if and when we should ever change audit companies again, what your thoughts are, I guess, as you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with whichever. I have a good relationship with this company, so I definitely enjoy working with them. I think we work well, and we've had the same people now almost the whole time they've been here. So that's been easy to work with them.
You think they do a thorough job, and
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah,
And it's helpful if I have questions throughout the year. They have helped with different, because the state always changes so many things. So they're very helpful in us figuring things out together if, there's some kind of a change.
Yeah, it's a great report. I mean, it's as easy as it can be to understand for this kind of stuff, to get across to people. So,
they're just asking because there's some risk inherently of having the same auditor forever, but if they're doing a good job and you're happy with them, don't see any reason to change right now.
I think one other benefit of them, and I'm sure other companies too, they have kind of like interns, is what you would call them, somebody that's newer that they bring with them, and it's pretty much somebody new every year, and they have them do little pieces here and there, and you can tell that they're trying to learn, and so they're looking at things a little bit different than somebody that's done it for forever. So I think that's a good thing that they bring.
Do you call them greenhorns? No.
No,
No. Just means like someone that's not well educated, newbie. Greenhorn. You ever heard of that before?
I've heard the term green. They're,
not
The
orange.
greenhorn.
it's okay, dear.
it's
I know
like
what it
the guys
means.
that would go
I think you should slip that
mine
one
it for
time.
gold that never done anything like that before. Oh, greenhorn.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Great job.
Yeah, it was very good.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
All right, we will move on to our action items. The first item up is our financials. Board action is required to approve the financials for the month ending October 31st, 2024. I would entertain a motion for the same.
So moved.
Support.
Discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same. Motion carries. Move on to retirement. Board action is required to accept the retirement of Jolene Booty, middle school secretary, effective November 8th, 2024, and she's been with us for over 37 years. I'll entertain a motion for the same.
So moved.
Support.
Discussion?
That's a long time.
Really long time.
It is. She was at the elementary when my kids started here back
Oh,
in before turn of the century.
Wait a minute here now. I remember when we hired her. Careful.
I just had my kids started before the turn of the century. All right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Motion carries. Middle school paraprofessional hire. Board action is required to approve the hiring of Karen Bodine. Do you know which way?
It's Bodine.
Bodine, okay. As a middle school paraprofessional, and I will entertain a motion for the same.
Support.
Discussion.
This is just to fill an open position we had, right?
Yeah, it was a replacement of, Mrs. Walker moved into my interventionist position, so Karen replaces Jasmine.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Motion carries. Bus driver hire. Board action is required to approve the hiring of Alicia Linnaberry Moore as a bus driver. I'll entertain a motion for the same.
You have one. So moved.
Was there a support? I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Archie. Discussion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Motion carries. Elementary paraprofessional hire. Board action is required to approve the hiring of Jordan Krantz as an elementary paraprofessional. I will entertain a motion for the same.
So moved. Support.
Discussion.
Once again, just to fill in an opening.
Yes.
Any other discussion?
She's an ex-Charger.
Charger for life.
She's
Yeah.
Charger for life.
Charge you alumni.
Charger alumni.
Oh, there you go.
Extra.
Ex
So is Karen.
X is a good thing. Having
Alumni.
Musk makes X everything.
Okay.
I wasn't saying EX. I was saying X. X-Charger.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying.
Former-
Like, I don't know if
former
that makes a
Charger.
difference.
It's like the Marines. Once a Charger, always a Charger, right? You're
They're
never
not
an ex-Marine.
ex-Marine.
You're a
I don't
former
know why you guys
Marine.
were replying to that.
I appreciate the clarification.
I'm glad she's here. Please tell her that tomorrow morning when you see her.
All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, the same. Motion carries. Middle school building secretary hire. Board action is required to approve the hiring of Shannon Keever as the middle school building secretary. I will entertain a motion for the same.
So moved. Support.
Discussion.
Nothing to that question.
I was going to ask. Are you
Also
guys
alumni.
gonna
Is that?
Also alumni or ex-Charger.
No, I was gonna say she's a replacement for an open position, but I knew the answer to that one.
We covered that earlier.
I promise you, if we ever are gonna add a position, I'll let you know. These are all replacements.
I like to ask every now and then, just make sure people are awake.
All right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Motion carries. And C2AE, pre-bond services letter of intent. Board action is required to approve the pre-bond services letter of intent with C2AE. I will entertain a motion for the same.
So moved. Support.
Discussion?
What's the cost of this project?
Letter.
This
There,
letter of intent? Is it up to 75?
the letter of intent has a maximum of 75,000, which, so basically what you're agreeing to do is, pay their fees to help us through the process of preparing for a bond and putting that together, up until the point when we have the election. If we have an election and it fails, and then we have another attempt and it also fails, we owe them nothing.
Oh, so they get no.
They get nothing.
Okay.
But if the election passes, either on the first or second try, then they will be the architect for the project. So the only reason we would have to pay that fee part of that 75,000 is if, for whatever reason, we had them do a bunch of work to help us get ready and then decided not to try for a bond. Then we would owe them for the work they've put in. It's very, very similar, almost identical to what we did with Chrisman a year ago when we started down this path.
And they'll be able to piggyback on the work that was done there and fees that were paid to that.
Cool. Chrisman is the construction management part. This is the architecture part of it. So
We have to try it 2 times, is that correct, if it doesn't pass the first time?
yes, yeah, they want to at least make a second attempt to for whatever the project. Their fees range from, if the project ends up being $1 to $5 million, it's 7.5% of the total cost of the project, and if it's over 50 million, it's 5.75%, and it scales between those two, and for different value amounts. So that's their fee structure. The Chrisman's fees for the construction management part were like 9.5%, I believe, is what our agreement with them was.
You've had no problems at all with C2A. You've been impressed with them. You've enjoyed working with them, and you feel like they are competent and responsive. And
Yes, I looked at as many architects as I could connect with at the MASA conference I spoke with. But primarily I talked with Chrisman about choosing an architect because early on they had expressed to me, you know, that depending on what kind of a project it is, it might determine which architect you choose. What they told me about C2A is that they don't typically go for like a flashy design. You know, they're not trying to or impress a magazine or anything like that to build something. Told them, wow, it's pretty straight, boxy rooms, square rooms, and simple architecture and low cost. And I said that sounds perfect for what we need. We don't need to impress anyone. We just need facilities that are functional and will do the job. And they did several projects around, including the Portage. I don't know if you've driven by Portage's buildings. They're very impressive looking from the outside. I've been inside one of them. So the work I've seen of theirs, they also are the company that worked with, I'm going to forget the name of the school district, but I talked to their superintendent, small school district right near Traverse City. Anyway, that was a year and a half ago or 2 years ago a year and a half ago when I went up there. And their superintendent was very complimentary of them. And I'm working with Steve. He's been here, he's been presented here, and he's been very good to work with, very responsive. So.
And they can do all the drawings, not just, they can do the, so we had a problem over there where they couldn't do the plumbing drawings or something because someone wasn't authorized or didn't get it done. I just want to make sure that they have the ability and the credentials
Yes,
to do.
and Whiteman would have done it, but that was a problem back with PSI, that gentleman whose name I shall not mention, who
Right.
basically told them that he would take care of that, and they didn't need to, and that's why those weren't done.
I've worked with both C2A and Chrisman on a project for Fowler High School. They added a big gym expansion, and also I can't remember the name of the school district out on the east side of the state, but they were also the architect. They weren't Chrisman wasn't involved, but they were the architect. And the quality of their documentation, everything's it was really good to work with. So seeing their name on here made me feel good. So. Fowler's a very similar, probably maybe larger than us, but not too much. But probably not terribly much. But and that was the partnership between both C2A and Chrisman both.
Okay.
So
Thanks.
so
There's no cost unless the bond passes.
That's right, and then we pay whatever the fee is on the project.
Any other discussion?
Is there a time frame they have to have a bond out by?
I don't believe so. But we're shooting for now. At this point, we're shooting for next August.
And then so my question, August 2025, I seen that in your email. So if that one fails, what's the earliest that we could try again?
We could try again in November.
So just a few months.
Yeah.
Okay.
So no risk of signing them on if we don't get anything. We don't get anything. We have to pay them. So makes sense to me. They're a good company.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Motion carries. Now we'll move on to our discussion items, section 12C and 12D of the grants.
Yes, so as you're aware from the letter I shared, we're not given any funds from the grant we applied for from Section 12C. We had a meeting today, several of us met with Scott Addison from the state, from Michigan Department of Ed, and asked him several questions about the process and our grant proposal, why we didn't receive a grant, and then we talked with them about the grants we could apply for that are opening up very soon. As to the grant that we did not get, essentially what we learned was that in sometime as the state was working on their budget for this next year, they were concerned that they had not given out any of that $245 million. Now, I don't know why they were concerned when the applications weren't opened until May, but they did give 3 awards in August, and they gave those to the only 3 school districts that had applied, 2 intermediates and Lansing Public, and those totaled, I believe, just under $30 million that they gave out in August. Yes. So the legislature basically took $110,000 and moved it, and that reduced the amount they had to give out to around $135 million. And then if I slip and say thousand, I mean millions. Okay, I'm not used to talking in that size number. So at that point, they received in the last week 10 applications, all within the last week before the deadline, which, to me seems normal. You apply for the grant before the deadline and then it gets considered, but apparently they were not thinking that way. They were acting on them when they received them. And so out of the 10 applicants that applied in that last week, they awarded 5, which went to the ISDs, all for technology consolidation, basically projects in which, like K-RESA got a large chunk of money. I don't remember if they were the 30 million or the 49 million to establish cloud services for districts in the state of Michigan.
It's a lot of clouds.
I mean, Google gives it to us for free, so I'm not sure exactly what the details of their proposals were. But the explanation to us today was that the state, in these kind of things, that typically they like to award money that impacts the greatest number of students, and so the ISDs got the money, and I, of course, shared my feelings on ISDs.
Did you share mine too?
I'm pretty sure he got the point.
Okay.
Not like he's the one making the decision. He was not. He's involved in setting up the application process and managing things, but he told us multiple times that he had no part in the decisions. But basically, that I said, in my opinion, ISDs waste a lot of money, and I think they do, and I think they pay their people much higher wages than locals pay, which they do, and they spend a lot more money on things that don't end up benefiting anyone, which I believe they do. But nevertheless, that money has been awarded and is gone. The 5 that didn't get grants, out of the 10, there were 5 ISDs that got grants. There were 2 ISDs that did not get any grant funds. And then there were 3 districts, Grand Rapids Public Schools, which asked for $65 million, and they didn't get any. Which made me feel pretty good, actually, because I'm sure they have grant writers on staff and all of that. So it was not, I'm sure theirs was professionally written and had everything that they needed, and but and then there was another small district that asked for I think 10 million that didn't get theirs. I don't remember the name of that district. But, so, given that was, we asked them questions about what we can do to improve our chances in the next opportunities, and there are 3 opportunities opening up, one of which could be this Thursday, which is the new section 12B, which is specifically directed at consolidation of buildings within a school district. So this one is not, although ISDs were mentioned in there, this one is certainly more directed at regular public school districts. And he felt like our project would fit in that category well. And that one, there will be a pool. There's $110 million, but somehow 5 school districts got their names written into the grant, into the actual law, language of the law. So Detroit Cooley Public Schools got 15 million or 13 million.
This is other one's not even open yet?
Yeah, but it's written right into the law. Out of this 110 million, 13 million is for Detroit Cooley for a new athletic complex.
This is 12D or this is
12D.
one that we can't even apply for yet?
Right.
Correct.
There are 5 school districts whose legislator, apparently, through negotiations in exchange for their vote, no doubt,
Got money.
wrote their district and their grant right into the law. So Detroit Cooley got a nice $13 million athletic complex. You know, we need buildings for our kids, but they get a new athletic complex, so seems fair. So
A $13 million one.
there were 4 other districts that got small amounts, 4 and 5 million, 3 million. So there's $75 million left out of that pot to apply for. Then there is section 12C is going to be up again, he told us, and that will be opening up in a few weeks. It's now divided into 2 parts, a $25 million, which is for emergency funds, for consolidation and emergency. Now, I don't know why you would have an emergency consolidation, but he asked us if we had anything we thought would fit that, and I said, well, we have our water lines that have already broken once and caused us to cancel school in the high school. Perhaps that might. And he thought that sounded like a good idea to him. It's only 25 million, however, so it's not like we could ask for a huge chunk of that, I would imagine. But we will certainly be able to apply for that. And then 12C is going to open again, but again, 12C is the one that we just got turned down for because we're not an ISD and we don't have a big impact on a lot of different people. He asked if there's a way we could combine with some other districts to have a broader impact or work with our, but, really, I told him I've certainly reached out to superintendents near us. Nobody's willing to consider that thus far, and so, but he agreed that we should apply for all 3 of them. He did suggest, however, that there seemed to be a definite preference in their review process for not constructing new buildings, but rather for renovations of existing facilities. So that is something I think we have to consider. He also thought that given that the pot of money is 75 million now, it's not 245 million, that we might have a better chance if we were asking for a smaller amount of money. That 64 million is a pretty big ask. I explained to him that I think from my perspective, one of the things I'm hoping for is that simply that for us to have any work done, I mean, the cheapest that we found through the study was $42 million, and that would be to renovate this building and to make it a 7-12 building, and to do renovations at the elementary to make it a K-6 building. And that, I said, at 42 million, even that for us to pass a bond would be a real challenge because of the number of mills that we would have to generate. I said, if we can get some money that will help us be able to say, well, we have a grant for, say, for instance, $15 million, $10 million, whatever it might be. If we can pair it with some bond funds, then we can do these projects. That will help us to get, I think, people on board with supporting the project. There are some priority rules written into the law that they have to pay attention to. One is the district, if you're in essentially a poverty level, I don't think that's what they called it, but what was the actual name of the level? But we're in level 3. You have to be in 3 or more needy, and we are in that level 3 category. We're close to level 4. There's a fine line. It just depends on how our numbers came out this year. But we would get that access by priority. The other thing is, another priority would be for districts that have a demonstrated difficulty in passing a bond issue. And I told him that we had not passed one here since 1972. I also explained how the change in the sinking fund law, it means that we can no longer have 5.5 mils sinking fund, which we used to have at one point in time. We're limited to 3, and that makes it practically impossible for us to do the things we need to do. So I think that we will qualify as a priority under the guidelines that are written into the law. So hopefully that will give us a good chance. He suggested we get our application in as soon as possible. And the 12D will open up. He said he's the one putting together the application. And it will be announced either this Thursday, and then he said, or next Thursday, and we reminded him that was Thanksgiving, and he said they always go out on Thursday, so it'll be this Thursday or the 5th at the latest before the announcement will open that up for applications. So we want to try to get an application in as soon as possible. My thought process is to, certainly want to hear from all of you and your feelings of it, but is to focus on the renovation of our existing buildings, asking for a smaller grant amount, something that can fit within the 75. Obviously, if it's only 75 million, they're not going to give us half of it, with all these other districts that could apply. But if we could ask for a smaller amount that we can use to pair with a bond and explain how we're going to do that. And then if we get that grant, then our steering committee can work on coming to the board with a plan for what we do to meet the rest of the needs that we have in terms of a bond.
Did you ask him how it would work if they would give us a portion of the money and we had 4 different options? If we chose a different option, like how that would work if we didn't do exactly what we had initially proposed? Or?
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why I focused on a grant toward, or I thought we could apply for a grant toward renovating this building and the elementary. That $42 million project, say this is what we intend to do. Then say we get a grant for $15 million and the steering committee says, well, if we're getting $15 million, we'd like to really go ahead and try to build a new elementary like we had planned over here. Well, that wouldn't change the high school aspect, which is about $20 million of that project. So the grant could still be used for what we said it would be used for. That way, either way, or if the steering committee, if we decided we want to build a new high school, well, we could use the grant money for renovating the elementary, which would still be part of what we had put in the application. So we would try to make, either way, we're gonna have to renovate one of these buildings to the tune of probably about around $20 million. And I think once we get the grant toward that, as long as we're doing that, that will be acceptable.
Because that was part of our discussion before, was what do we ask for, and what if it changes and all those things, that doesn't
Right.
really make sense. So,
I believe that once we if we do receive a grant, that will be possible.
can we change our letterhead to like Union City ISD?
Was there anything
Then you'd
that-
have to pay us all more though.
Oh. But if we over budget, it wouldn't matter.
Was there anything that he recommended that we needed to alter or improve in our?
In the proposal
Yeah,
itself,
yeah.
he did not give any pointer. Do you remember any pointers about that? He didn't seem
Just
to believe.
less
Yes.
ask for less
Ask for
amount.
less.
Asked for less, but as far as the actual format of what we presented, there would be
He
no
said
change.
he wasn't involved in the review, like,
Right,
so
No.
he didn't.
but I mean, you gotta
He's-
think, he reads enough stuff to say,
He knows
you are,
what they're.
you could make this more robust, or, maybe
It
you
sounded to
can't.
me like he was frustrated with how it was done.
He did say
Because he
that,
said multiple times that.
and
don't wanna
I
say
wasn't
out loud,
going to.
But yeah,
I'm
sounds
not
like he was
going
a little
to-
frustrated how it turned.
Yeah. Yeah. There's
So-
certain aspects I don't want
So
to
we're-
really
We gotta cut some money off
Talk
of it
about
then.
Right, but we could ask for an amount, but they could give us a different amount, correct? Like,
Oh,
we asked
yeah,
for 20,
most of
could
them they
give
gave,
us
most of them
15,
they took
10,
some
or-
part out.
Okay.
Most of them, there were a couple that were fully funded, but most of them, they might cross out, well, we'll give you this much. Now, they generally didn't take that much out, but, whatever we ask for, they will either give us nothing
Or less.
or they could give us less than what we asked for,
Less than nothing.
yeah.
This is something.
But I think that asking for a large number, they're likely to just go, we're not gonna deal with you. So. Do you have any other feedback on that as we try to get this prepared so we can get it submitted?
We could consult a grant writer specifically or anything like those kind of services you could benefit or
In terms of this particular grant, I really don't think that is going
more
to.
of the ask?
It seems to be based on more on how many students you're going to impact. I think what we wrote was fine. I don't believe that was the issue at all. He gave us the impression that had we gotten our application in, if we'd gotten the study and gotten our application in June, that we probably would have been given some money in August when they gave the other ones. Because they gave all three of the ones, they had 3 applications, and they gave all of them money. Because they didn't know that they were gonna get any other applications. And
Well, then you don't have a deadline.
I said, well,
Or you move the deadline up,
you open
or
it in
whatever.
May and you set it a September deadline,
Frustrating.
I kind of expect that they wait till the deadline and then choose the best projects out of
Like a
all
bid
of them.
opening, right? You can't open anything until the deadline.
Why would they just choose the first 3 they got without waiting until everybody had applied and then selecting the ones? But that's just my thought process. That's how every grant I've applied for has ever been done. And I've applied for and gotten a few, and
So basically, we want to reduce our ask, and we had a number of options before, and either we pick the lowest option or we pick a portion of the lowest option, basically are our choices.
yeah.
Okay, so if you're asking for my opinion, I think we ask for the lowest option because it's already a package deal, it's put together, this is what the experts said we should do, and if they said, we'll give you X amount of that, then so be it, but
Then we'll figure out how to spend
I
it.
don't
at that
think it's,
point.
I don't think it makes a lot of sense to try to cherry pick and pick a number from wherever and say, can we have $2 million just because? I don't, that's probably not a good example. You see what I'm trying to say? I mean,
Right.
I think we already have a company that came in and provided a service to us, and this is what you need. We asked for this. We like this option, but well, this one's okay.
And you are going to apply for the emergency,
Yes,
12C emergency?
12C.
Yeah, okay.
12D, yeah, 12C emergency.
12C2.
And then after that, there will be the other 12C, and we'll apply for that one as well if we don't
Okay.
get it. He did say that it's entirely possible. We apply and they could notify us within a month whether they're gonna give us money or not, so.
As long as we apply.
Or it could be, maybe this time they'll wait till the end. Who knows?
It's easy if we would
So that-
change the quote or change the grant application for just the first option, right? That's not much work to do that.
Yeah, well, it's also, they're doing it through the Nexus system now instead of the GEMS system, and so there may be some slight changes in terms of certain information we have to enter, but yeah, we'll make the adjustments that are necessary.
Does anybody else have any different opinions?
No,
This is an open discussion.
no, it's my opinion, it's short-sighted for them to only consider renovations. But if that's the route they're going down, then let's play the game, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's not part of the law or anything like that,
No,
but
but-
he just felt that
Yeah,
that
that's,
seemed to be,
I'd take that.
that they would look
yeah.
at with more favor upon that
I think
as
that's-
opposed to new buildings.
You spend 40 million, turns into a $50 million, $60 million job very quickly. Stressful. So either
Well-
way, but if that's the game we have to play, then let's play it, right?
Well, no matter what we do, unless we went for a K-12 building, we'd be looking at renovating one building.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so, I think any funds we get, we put towards that particular building that we end up renovating.
I agree.
What if, instead of using like the whole renovation number, cause that's still kind of a big number, if we use the renovation number for, that they gave us, that was the quote for one of the buildings. So whether, I'm just pulling numbers out right now, if they said it was 25 for the elementary and 20 for the high school, if we asked for the 20, it's not as much as the whole 45, you know, for that, for that option.
I don't
Can we do
believe
that?
I don't believe there's any chance of them giving us 45 million.
Right, that's what I'm saying, so if
We didn't know that going into the first round, but after seeing it, I know that Lansing Public asked for, well, at least I was told by our construction manager, he believed they were going to ask for 60 million, and I know that they were given around 20 million for their project, and their project affected 8 different buildings. I doubt very seriously that they're going to give us more than, I'd be surprised if they give us more than 10, 15 million.
if we ask for 20, maybe
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. I follow what you're
they
saying.
would. We'd have a greater chance of getting something than if we
I
said
don't
we
want-
want 45.
I
and
don't want to
then-
be seen as unreasonable, yes.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
But I would want to, I would present the project to them as the whole project, what we're trying to
This is what
accomplish.
it's gonna
Right.
cost.
And we're
this
And
is
then
asking
what
we're
we
gonna
look
need to
for.
do a bond.
to assist us.
Right.
Yeah, we'll pay
And
for the
that
rest.
in our district to pass a bond large enough to cover this whole thing is
We need this.
gonna be very impossible,
Mhm.
to do. So what we would like is to reduce any amount of bond that we might have to ask for.
Right.
And,
Yeah, to show our public that the state's backing this project, right? Yeah.
Right.
if we can get some support on it,
Yeah.
I think, I've made this comment before, I think, I'd like to get at least 10 million if at all possible, because I think that kind of a number helps people think that, okay, this is, if you get a couple million, yeah, it helps, but taking $2 million off the cost of that isn't gonna really change the calculation much.
No.
But you take 10 million off of it, that really makes people think about, gee, if we turn this down, what are we doing?
Right.
If we turn this down, we've just maybe given up $10 million, if we don't put the money we need with it to make it happen. So, anyway,
Well, does our discussion help you then?
I think,
Has that
I
given you
think
the answers
so.
you're looking for?
Yeah, I think
Anybody
so. Yeah, I
else have
think we're
anything they
all
need to?
aligned.
And before I submit anything, I would certainly, you know, share it with everybody and make sure, you know, get any feedback you'd have before I, you know, but I, you know, we're trying to respond quickly to be one of the first ones back in.
Yes.
Yeah, it sounds like that's key, is getting it in early.
So that
Yes,
we
yes.
can get considered right away.
Mhm. Okay, thank you for that information, frustrating as it may be. Information items, CASB awards nomination information.
Yeah, the information is in your packet. If there's someone you would like to nominate for either of those awards that were listed. I think the deadline is, when was the deadline on that?
I don't think it's until next year.
Yeah,
Well, they
it's
do
quite
it
a
in
ways out.
April, but
Yeah, I think you could do it October, November. I think, is it
Thirteenth,
January?
January
Through
January
31st.
31st.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so you have time to think about it, and then if you wanna make a nomination, we can, you know, do that sometime in January, at the January meeting. So,
okay. All right, that brings us down to our second public comment area. This is a section of the meeting in which the public may make comments or share their opinions about Union City Community Schools. We ask you to limit your comments to no longer than 5 minutes per person to allow others the opportunity to speak. This is an opportunity for the board to listen to your concerns. It is not board practice to act on the concerns voiced during this meeting to allow for the board to do further research. Do we have any public comments at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on to board roundtable. Anybody have anything that they'd like to share tonight? I heard some very nice things regarding the veterans program
It was
that
very
the
nice.
school did, and I want to pass that along, that it was really nice, very enjoyable, and greatly appreciated.
It was. My wife and Jack and I went, and it was very nice. Nice refreshments, and they had a nice play. It was appreciated. As a veteran,
Yeah,
I appreciated it.
awesome.
Good.
Awesome.
Thank you for sharing our opinion about the ISDs. Our shared opinion.
Anything else for tonight? All right. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support.
Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Motion carries.